I heard the impact before I saw the damage. With shrieking, metal giving way, the quiet pop of screws ripped from old grain. By the time I reached the curb, my mailbox lay on its back like a knocked-out boxer, post splintered, black box crumpled, a smear of white paint across the ruin like a signature. Karen Monroe stepped out of her white Mercedes with a hand to her chest and a performance-ready gasp. "Oh my goodness, Jack," she said, not Dr. Sullivan, which she knew was my title. I was backing out of the Hendersons. These sensors are so unreliable. My eyes drifted to the neat arc of tire marks, the way her bumper lined up perfectly with where the post had stood. In the ER, some lies arrive with elevated heart rates and shaky hands. Karen's arrived laminated. "It happens," I said, "because it does. People slip, cars slide, and predators test." She produced a glossy brochure and a clipboard with all the sincerity of a televangelist. "We'll make this right, but your current structure isn't compliant with Section 4.2. You'll need an approved model." All the options she'd circled looked like they belonged in the driveways of French chateaus. I lived in my grandmother's modest two-story colonial. "Compliant with what?" I asked. "Our HOA standards," she said, smiling the way you smile right before lowering a knife. I was a third shift. ER doc running on coffee and adrenaline and a life inherited from a woman who'd believed in hot tea, front porch swings, and minding your own business. The swing still squeaked when the evening breeze caught it. I'd repaired it. I'd repaired a lot of things since Grandma Rose died. I could repair a mailbox. But when I reviewed my neighbor's doorbell footage that night, 15 clean seconds of Karen pausing, angling, then accelerating directly into the post, I understood repair wasn't the assignment. She hadn't made a mistake. She'd made a point. So I did what I do best. I documented. I photographed paint transfer and measured impact angles. I downloaded Maria Lopez's footage twice and backed it up 3 times. I scanned every letter Karen had taped to my door, each citing a regulation that didn't exist. And I started talking to people, quietly, because once you've seen enough patterns you know shame is the net that holds victims apart. The Hendersons had replaced their mailbox 3 times. Mrs. Chun paid a fine for putting out trash cans a day early. Mr. Garcia was threatened for parking his work van in his own driveway. The stories changed. The pressure felt the same. Pay, comply, don't ask to see the bylaws because Karen keeps those at the office. I went to the office, City Hall, not the nail salon masquerading as a law firm on Karen's letterhead. The clerk searched, frowned, searched again. No HOA on record. No bylaws, no covenants, no filings. Our neighborhood, Meadowbrook Heights, had rules about setbacks and fire hydrants. Because every city does. It didn't have Karen. When I confronted her on her porch, she didn't blink. "Computers lag," she said, as if legal entities were Netflix queues. "I'll send you the incorporation papers." I asked for financials for tax purposes. Her smile tightened like a badly tied tourniquet. "We'll need to consult counsel," she said. Of course we would. Counsel's office, I would later confirm, was Suite 301 of Kim's Nail Salon. 3 days later, a cleanup crew in a nondescript truck removed my replacement mailbox under a forged emergency authorization. They also removed Mrs. Peterson's garden gnomes and 3 houses' worth of holiday flags. The city had authorized nothing. The truck's plates were smeared with staged mud. Maria, a graphic designer, pointed at the crew's shirts and snorted. "Screen print. No contractor pays for cheap logos." I filed formal complaints, first with the local precinct, then with the postal inspector. Mailboxes are federal. Title 18, Section 1705, Break 1, and you've broken the law with the wrong agency. Officer Thomas Reed, whom I knew from overlapping emergency calls, came by my place at dusk and flipped through the stack I'd built. Photos, letters, video stills. "This is good work," he said. "Too good for a coincidence." "You think?" I said, and he grinned. "Dr. Sullivan, I think you've got a fraud ring dressed in pastels." Before I could reply, the front porch swing creaked. The breeze hissed through the oxygen tubing I'd lashed along the railing as a private. Reminder to fix what breaks, protect who you love, and never confuse a bully's confidence for legality. Different story. Same lesson. I called Mark Davidson, an old friend from college who'd spent 2 decades designing things the world tried to blow up. "I need a mailbox," I told him. He laughed. A mailbox that laughs back? Or at least refuses to die. Meet me Saturday, he said. We'll give Karen a master class in the economics of attack. We dug at dawn, 4 feet down, 3 across, steel bars like ribs laced in a cylinder. Mark explained the concept for the watching. Neighbors in calm, patient tones he must have used while briefing colonels. Layered defense, he said, tightening rebar ties. Make the cost of attack exceed any possible benefit. We poured concrete rated to shrug off a small truck. I installed motion cameras with redundant cloud storage, audio mics tucked beneath the cap, and impact sensors tuned to log force vectors. The mailbox itself, aircraft aluminum on a shock mount, looked like it belonged on a research sub. By noon, the crowd had grown. The Hendersons with coffee, Mr. Garcia with sandwiches, Mrs. Green with a manila folder, and the sharp eyes of a retired school administrator who's had enough. Maria live-streamed, because she understood attention is a disinfectant. By late afternoon, #Mailbox Fortress was climbing. Mrs. Green waited until the concrete set before pressing the folder into my hands. Receipts for fake HOA dues. Threatening letters from Monroe and Associates. Notes she'd kept each time Karen appeared on her porch with a smile and a deadline. People pay when they're alone, she said. Stops working when they're not. That night, as the concrete cured, 3 silhouettes slipped across the yard just after 2 a.m. The motion sensors triggered the floods. Karen's voice, crisp as cut glass, snapped through the audio feed. Tear down this illegal structure. They had crowbars. We had physics. The first hit registered with a satisfying thunk and a readout I screen-capped for court. The second blow sent a bright fan of wet concrete onto their car. Maria's stream went live on its own, viewers pinging the police faster than I could. When Reed's cruiser rolled up, the getaway car's back tires were set like fossils. Karen tried to climb out, slipped, and stared into a camera lens instead. Morning brought a cease and desist letter forged with 3 local attorneys' names. Each denied any involvement when Reed called. Forging legal. Signatures isn't a neighborhood spat, it's a felony with a long tail. The more I pulled, the more string came loose. Phoenix addresses, Colorado complaints, a pattern of fake HOAs and quick exits. Jim Monroe, Karen's husband, reached out in a carefully formal email that read like a man asking for absolution without knowing if he deserved it. We met at a coffee shop across town. He looked gray around the edges, like someone fighting off a fever of the soul. I thought she was making the neighborhood better, he said. She kept the money in an account I didn't know existed. She forged my name. He slid a printout across the table, spreadsheets, deposits labeled dues, payments to shell companies. A second sheet detailed expansion targets with a neat list of nearby subdivisions and demographic notes. He wasn't just betraying his wife. He was arresting his own denial. Riverside is next, he said. Fixed incomes. Easy to scare. We didn't wait for next. Reed coordinated with the state AG's office. I delivered the packet. Maria raised the volume. By the time Karen staged her emergency community safety meeting in the rec center lot to denounce my militarized eyesore, the community arrived with receipts. Karen's speech was polished and frantic, like a dam with hairline cracks. She warned of falling property values and dangerous structures. She waved an alleged court order signed by a real judge. Reed dialed the chambers on speaker. I signed no such thing, the judge's clerk said, and the dam burst. Mrs. Green spoke first, no props. Just a voice that had carried gymnasiums. You've been stealing from this neighborhood for 3 years, she said, quiet and devastating. This, she pointed at the fortress, is the first time you met something you couldn't push around. Others followed. Mr. Garcia with the tow threat letters, Maria with frames from streams, the Hendersons with canceled checks. Then Jim stepped forward, hands trembling but voice steady. He described the hidden accounts, the template letters, the plan to move to Riverside once Meadowbrook bent. Karen lunged for the mic. The performance snapped. She ranted about conspiracies and traitors, spit out private facts she couldn't have known without illegal listening. Reed didn't need more. He cuffed her beside a folding table stacked with handouts. That looked official until you touched them. The criminal charges escalated like cardiac markers in a bad lab report. Impersonation, forgery, mail fraud. When the FBI looped in, fake legal mailings. Across state lines. a pattern that matched open cases. The picture widened. Karen wasn't the first or the last. She was a local franchisee with a script and a region. Jim's spreadsheets and the files, seized from their home office, sketched an ecosystem, shell associations, kickbacks from approved contractors, pressure tactics refined like a sales funnel. When a work crew prepping her foreclosed house found a hidden room behind a false wall months later, the remaining doubt evaporated. Inside, demographic profiles, surveillance notes, and a map of 12 neighborhoods marked with expected monthly yields. By the time it reached court, it wasn't Sullivan versus Meadowbrook, HOA. It was State versus Karen Monroe et al., and then USV, a ring of operators who'd learned how far a laminated badge and a confident tone would travel. Karen took a plea. She got years. So did several of her contractors, and a municipal inspector who'd looked the other way for envelopes and favors. None of that was the point the day we unplugged the floodlights for the first time and sat on the porch swing. Me, Maria with streaming gear finally quiet, Mrs. Green with a clipboard that had real bylaws for a new, actually elected board, and 3 neighbors who'd brought folding chairs and a box of donuts that tasted like apology. "You're really keeping that thing?" Maria asked, nodding at the fortress. Its concrete skin now painted the soft black of my grandmother's original mailbox. "It's part of the folklore," I said. "Symbol," Mrs. Green corrected. "We like symbols. They remind us we're not powerless." The legitimate HOA elected her president by acclamation. Their first motion, free legal clinics twice a year, funded by voluntary dues, to teach people how authority actually works and what to do when it fakes it. Their second, a community fund to help anyone targeted by intimidation, by an HOA, a landlord, a scammer in a suit. We're a neighborhood. The new bylaws start. We keep receipts. We ask questions. We help each other. The fortress wasn't a dare anymore. It was a landmark children pointed at on their walk to school while their parents told a story about a bully who mistook silence for consent and what happens when a quiet street decides to speak. Months later, Agent Martinez from the Bureau sent me a copy of a press release. Their task force had used our case to break a similar network in 3 other states. "Your documentation model was useful," her note said, "which is government for. We copied your homework and aren't mad about it." The press dubbed the new legislation tightening HOA registration and transparency Jack's Law, which is the kind of nickname you try to deflect while secretly hoping your grandmother would have liked it. I keep the article folded in a kitchen drawer beneath her recipe for blueberry pie. Sometimes I still hear the original impact, the clean, deliberate hit of a car against wood when I lock up after a night shift. I hear it the way I hear a monitor alarm long after the room goes quiet. Then the wind moves through the maple leaves, the swing creaks, and the fortress sits in the near dark, unbothered. It's not a bunker anymore. It's a reminder. Here's what I tell the interns when they rotate through the ER and the neighborhood dads when we meet over coffee. Don't confuse polite with powerless. Don't argue with fiction. Ask for the document. Call the number. Verify the seal. If the law is on your side, use it. If your neighbor needs a hand, show up with more than a casserole. Bring a notepad. Bring a camera. Bring a friend. And if someone keeps ramming your mailbox, build one that teaches physics and civics in the same blow.